what's the intracranial contents, right? The mystery for me, not that the heart is not an amazing complex thing as a muscle, but it's more straightforward to people as far as at least chambers that fill and empty and fill and empty, and it either goes to the lungs or goes to the brain continues to be a mystery. Talk about the anatomy of the lymphatic system. We'll talk about its relationship to neurodegenerative disorders, and it's really the important connection it has to sleep. This talk has a little bit of this information you can apply to your patients. A lot of it you can apply to yourself, especially how many people are night shift or spent substantial amount of time on night shift. Right? I am a night shift person. I did 9 years of night shift. And I had to return. They did away with our education department. They said, you gotta go back to the bedside. I probably work nights. I'm starting to change my mind after researching all this stuff. So we'll talk about self-care to nurses. This is just a handy little chart, sleep needed according to the CDC. I try not to read it too much because even now I don't get it. I need that forward. Ring or Fitbit or something like that. It tells me constantly about my sleep and it makes me obsess about it a little bit. So a quick little A and B review about like what's in the vault. I love this brownish picture. On the left, these guys are measuring the inside, the capacity of the inside of the skull by filling it with water and then pouring it into a graduated cylinder. It's like an 8th grade science project. Of course, here's Dr. Monroe, Dr. Kelly. Everybody's familiar with the Monroe-Kelly hypothesis, right? There's some debate about it now and its usefulness, but I think it's worthwhile pointing that 10% of vasculature, 10% of blood in the vasculature here, only 2% of it is arterial. Talking about a really small percentage when you think about the actual volume in here of blood, because we're going to be talking about the perivascular space. Okay. As far as cell review, everybody pretty comfortable with neurons, how they work. We've got multipolar, unipolar, and these fairly straightforward when we draw a nice simple picture like this of neurotransmitters. But we have the glial cells, right? What are some of, I'm just going to ask, what are some of our glial cells? What's the most important? Anyway. We have nerve cells in here. What's the next most important cell? You'll know it by the end of today. Anybody know it right off the top? No. Astrocytes, right? These are the things where you're going to go back into your nursing school and what else in there? Astrocytes, oligodendrocytes. I've got them all conveniently listed here for us, right? And sometimes it only matters when we're dealing with a neoplasm of some sort. You're like, oh, this patient has an ependymoma, or the oligodendrocytoma, or an astrocytoma, or a glioblastoma, right? So if we think about neurons first, and we think about what they look like, at least as they are often illustrated, the slides don't ever actual slides don't ever look exactly like this. This is a nice clean picture, right? Neurons with their little vesicles. Any of our neurotransmitters, whether it's serotonin, whether it's GABA, whatever it is that's being transmitted, making this whole beautiful blob work. And then we have these glial cells. So what we're really going to focus on today, I like this picture because it puts it all together, right? You can see the astrocyte. I remember as a new nurse, I thought that the blood-brain barrier was like an actual translucent barrier, like something that compounds bounced off of, right? I didn't really understand it. I thought of it as like a dura, right? But like a saran wrap or something. I didn't really understand that you have the astrocyte has 1 foot on the vasculature and 1 foot on the neuron, right? And those feet wrap around the synapses as well, to maintain that extracellular environment. Astrocytes do a lot of amazing, wonderful things, which we'll talk about. This is a nice picture where these are actually glial fibrillary stained, where you can see the astrocytes and the way that they wrap around the vasculature, right? This is a really important part. You'll understand why this is important. That if I'm an astrocyte and I've got one hand on the vasculature and one hand on the neuron, what does that allow me to do as an astrocyte? What can I do? As far as our statistics, depending on species, 20 to 50% of total CNS cell numbers are astrocytes. They maintain homeostasis. That's during development and normal physiology and aging. They really do live up to their name as glial, meaning that they're helper cells as we age. Or with damage, sometimes they will take over the work of damaged neurons. A lot of influence on neuroplasticity and healing. As far as protecting neurons from excitotoxicity, they kind of wrap around those synapses. They're, as I said, such a part of the blood-brain barrier. They definitely, they also do things like those signal pruning as the brain is developing, right? For instance, if a child is born deaf, and it's not like their auditory cortex just doesn't do anything, it gets recruited into other brain functions. And as those neurons fire together, they start to wire together and they start to work more efficiently. And so astrocytes are part of that signaling process and development. How many people, first of all, have heard of, forgot to do like, this will do a good job, like reading the room? What are people's backgrounds? How many people have heard of the lymphatic system, at least in passing? Okay. A handful of you. Glial, this is like the old one. I don't know how many people are old enough to remember Morgan Freeman on Electric Company. They do things like, oh, stop, right? Glia, I mean, you know, is glit of lymphatic is glial. The lymphatic part is lymphatic. So this was first identified about 15 years ago. And I like using a primitive picture, first of all, because this was about how well described it was. That in this perivascular space, on one side, you have things, metabolites flowing across, managing to make it through these little gateways and getting dumped into the venous system to get dumped into the lymphatic system. Now, our understanding is improved, just like this picture is improved. Here you have a good sense of those little double lines around like where the perivascular space is. Here's the arterial and venous. That is aquaporin 4. I don't want to get too technical because I know everybody's in their postprandial appetite and thinking and like I have like able to insert things on top of the sandwich. Carb loaded like I'm playing football. Aquaporin is in a lot of different parts of the body. Basically, what it does here is it's a little gateway that allows things to pass through. Right. In this case, this is what allows these little pieces of, you know, little metabolites, these little black dots, all the stuff that needs to be flushed out of your brain. The astrocytes open these aquaporin channels and allow that to go through, very much like the holes in a washing machine. Right, the washing machine fills with disgusting water as you're washing your stuff, and then it all drains away. Right? So I hope that this, I do have a video, this doesn't have audio. If I just click this, is it going to find? This is a great image of perivascular space. Just, I love neuroimaging so much, and the things that people can do. I hope not.
He's got
this
it.
Is,
He's got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay. It's embedded, so it doesn't require any connectivity. So this is the layers and how to compose it. In the end here, we'll see this perivascular space, right? So I want like a 3D print of that. So this is the space that we're talking about. This is the space where things gather and get dumped into, with the help of the most important glial cell, the astrocyte. So 3 of the roles of the lymphatic system are waste removal. 80% of the metabolites are removed by the lymphatic system. How many people have heard of amyloid beta or tau proteins? Anybody work with Alzheimer's patients? Right, these are things that are those amyloid tangles. There's, you'll see why this is associated with so many dysfunctions of the lymphatic system. It's associated with so many disorders, both as a cause and a result of acquired injury. The lymphatic system helps deliver glucose and lipids and amino acids, and also transports immune cells. it drains those immune cells into the lymph nodes, as we saw here. Right, how it dumps into the lymphatic system. I like this as a illustration because it's kind of how I imagine those aquaporin for openings, allowing transport of fluid to go through. In terms of this cycle of neurodegenerative disorders causing inflammation, and then that inflammation impairing the lymphatic system, which exacerbates the neurological disorder. I thought it was handy to say, like, if you think of impaired lymphatic system, and you think about how much aquaporin 4 can transport, like, hey, I'm going to the beach, right? We have sand where I live too, right? I live in the desert, I live in the high desert. And not where I go in the world, if I say in Albuquerque, even in Scotland, so I was just talking to Samantha about, like, oh, Breaking Bad. And it is, that was a pretty accurate depiction of my hometown and where I lived. It was quite accurate. But if you think about how much aquaporin can transport, it's roughly the equivalent mass of a single grain of sand here, which is a lot. And again, we're talking about only 2% of this blood that's in here, 2% is arterial, and 8% is venous. Right? So this reduced waste removal, obviously, if you imagine sort of clogging up this washer, like, I don't know if you have, you used to have a dog, your washer gets clogged up with hair, things don't get through. The water goes through, but the particles don't go through, right? That might be one way to wrap your head around this abstract idea of the lymphatic system. Now, the scary part is about the lymphatic system is we look at all of the disease processes that are associated here. When we think about Alzheimer's, that blood-brain barrier becomes more permeable, and you have increased cytokines, which she was talking about earlier, with cytokines and catecholamines and these inflammatory processes going on. Right, that stuff doesn't get cleared out. These interleukins, don't freak out if these guys talking about interleukins and I don't remember. I sort of remember from nursing school. So think of like the inflammatory process and how it gets, you know, how it's supposed to get cleared out. But the lymphatic system is also associated with ALS, Parkinson's. That's research about absence seizures. I didn't see other research about other types of generalized seizures, you know, non-focal seizures. Anybody here working in EMU or have experience with seizures and migraines are associated? There's a substantial amount of research about mood disorders as well, depression, mood disorders. Sleep behavior disorder, right? There's a big tie in here that we'll see between the lymphatic system and sleep. We have as a culture in nursing, right? We get into these contests with each other, like, and I'm working relatively new. At least this is the way it was for me, 2007, 2008. I would get the uphill both ways in the snow lecture from my charge nurse. And I would say, oh man, I'm brand new and I just got this guy's the first time I ever had a lumbar drain, you know. 2 weeks out of school or 2 weeks off orientation. And my charge nurse would say, well, I graduated nursing school, I was put in charge of a head and neck cancer unit, I was the only RN at 18 LPNs. Well, this is a true story. And when my patient's glass eye fell out, and I put it back in. Now I know how to put a glass eye and go teach all the LPNs. You know, and so there's like, you know, and then you come in and that same person, you know, man, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night. But you got 4 hours of sleep, I got 3 hours of sleep. That's 2 days, right? And you know, I don't know if anybody's a Monty Python fan, but there was a routine in the old Monty Python, at least in one of the live sessions, where these 4 guys or these stuffy British guys having a contest about who had it worse during the Blitz. You know, we lived in a shoebox with toilet paper. Oh, you took toilet paper, you know. So my reason for you know bringing that up is that there's a culture of like being a badass. Yes, you can take that paired patient that's supposed to be a one, you can work these crummy, you know, yeah, stay and work overtime, pick up that extra shift. And that's great. That's one of the great things about nursing, right? At my hospital, I don't know what's going to happen because we just did away with overtime in the emergency room. I don't know if they work in the emergency room. That's part of the culture. burning yourself out, picking up overtime, and making, making the cash. Right, so this is why I spend a little extra time on sleep behavior disorder and what this does, right? I don't want to scare anybody with these other things. But there's a lot of these cerebral small vessel disease is connected, MS, NPH, right? I just like those methods. So acquired disorders have an impact on the lymphatic system, just like the lymphatic system. If you think of that washing machine cycle picture, right? Traumatic brain injury, there's disruption of the neurochemistry, disruption of the tissue, disruption of the cells, disruption of the astrocytes and neurons and how they function. Use post-traumatic edema. Certainly a subarachnoid hemorrhage, as some of my pals here were talking about, like what happens when you get blood spilling out of the CSF. We don't want any of that blood in the CSF. And that's such a feature because of the feature where our aneurysms tend to form. We're talking about aneurysms, subarachnoid hemorrhage, right? Gliomas, obviously, that's going to disrupt vasculature, that's going to disrupt cellular integrity, cellular function, as will meningiomas. I didn't want to go too deep today, as I have not gone fully into this to where I can completely speak to it authoritatively. But in addition to our own sleep-wake cycles that our brain maintains, we've now come to understand that astrocytes have their own internal clocks as well that sync up. So this whole circadian rhythm thing happens at a microscopic level, at a cellular level, a subcellular level. And I only really started to understand that to the degree that we can apply it. And part of our understanding is coming through our understanding of the lymphatic system and its relation to sleep. And by the way, I'm happy to share my slides. I'm normally, as a certified nurse and pressure ball educator, I'm totally violating all the rules. Like I'm not supposed to put as many words on a slide. But my goal is to put this on the slide so that if you learn, I'll send it to you. And that way you don't have to sit try to write this stuff down. I'd rather have you just listen to me and then go back and be like, okay. Does that make sense? So yeah, let's talk about sleep. This is, I'm so envious of my son's 11 now. 5 years ago. Those of you that have kids know that it's possible for children to fall into a deep, unraveled state at the weirdest, like, I'm gonna eat. Hey, and then you gotta like carry it, and then you're like, especially the neuro nurse, you're like, I break a staircase in my 1920s boarding house that I lived in, not hit his head on the banister or anything else. He's not hold on to me, he's out, right? And I would pay money for that kind of sleep. I would pay a substantial amount of money by the hour. You're like, all right, I need like 8 hours of sleep. Let's see, I'll pay, all right, $300 an hour to get 8 solid hours of sleep. And I don't mean like propofol or not induced, right? Just natural deep sleep like you get, right? And if anybody work in a sleep center or have any experience like looking at healthy brains sleeping, I don't want to know. Like my doctor ordered a sleep study. I don't want to know. So if you look at, this is a great chart of circadian rhythms. I don't want to go line by line with it, but we have circadian rhythms that, our sleep-wake cycle is just one of the body's circadian rhythms. This is based on a roughly 24-hour clock, and they did research where 2 guys went down into a cave and discovered that in complete blackness, the human body still has like a 24, 25 hour clock. That's like a natural thing. Where that comes from, I don't know. I'm not like a biological anthropologist or anything. But all these different processes that take place. And a lot of it is photo entrainment, right? We started to understand that in popular culture as far as like staring at your phone. You're in bed. How many people wake up in the middle of the night like I can't sleep? I'm gonna start doom scrolling. That's the most sensible thing to do. Yeah, you start doom scrolling, and then you're like, oh, that guy posted on Facebook. I'm not even friends with that guy or whatever. Or heaven forbid you actually look at your retirement like Okay, sorry, just straight that, I'm sorry. Because that word's gonna be distracted. Retirement, but those of us whose retirements are not pensions and who are tied to a 401k or to 7B or 403B. So photo entrainment, this is where the light coming into your eye goes to a variety of different places, and then if you want to take a guess at the gland that the light ultimately influences. I teach anatomy, and sometimes I think what I'm talking about is obvious, and I have to like stop and go. I talk about this stuff all the time. Anybody, what's the guess? What's the gland?
Pineal gland.
Yes. Pineal gland. I'll show you a nice picture. So what they found with one of these articles, and all my references are at the end. CSF tracers move more quickly through the lymphatic system. Now, this is what my psychologist friends at the university call rat brain studies, but it's useful to look at some of the mammalian brain studies. Moves differently in mice when they're in a sleep state compared to a wakeful state. Clearance of amyloid beta was twice as fast. So those plaques that start to form. So as well, start thinking about sleep differently. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to tell anybody to quit night shift. Somebody's got to do it. And I would do it. I'm a night shift. I don't like day shift. So there are these links that we've now seen in human studies between CSF flow rate and sleep. Oxygen consumption and blood flow goes down when that slower wave. Anybody have a device that monitors your sleep and checks the stages? There's rings. What do you have?
The aura.
Is it the aura? When I gave this talk a couple of weeks ago in New Orleans, and somebody was like, "What stage of sleep is the most active?" I have an aura ring, and I was like, "I feel you. I have now become obsessed with sleep stages." Which is this is enough. I know that this is not accurate, and that's why it's enough, because I don't want it fully accurate. I want to know that there's some doubt about how much good sleep I got last night. And the aura is really good at enabling you when you wake up in the morning, you haven't had this, you don't take it easy today.
Yeah.
Sleep isn't as good as it used to be, so treat yourself. Thank you. I'll leave her. Thank you. But it says I have to go. So, there's these alterations that happen in CSF flow when you have insufficient slow wave sleep. And metabolic waste clearance is impaired. It's really the myth of recovery sleep is becoming more of this profound myth. Because I used to think like, okay, I'm like my sleep's not so good, but I will say, and I don't know how many of you that work nights still or used to work nights, how many people feel like you maintain a good sleep regimen, a good sleep hygiene? And that's really, I in some ways I got better sleep as a night nurse because I came home at the same time every day, took a shower at the same time. I didn't stay up to watch TV, right? Then COVID hit. We all developed that thing that they call revenge bedtime procrastination. Right? Okay. I'm glad some people, because sometimes I hear these things and people are just staring at me like, this is guy, who got this guy in here? That revenge bedtime procrastination thing where you have so little control over your life during the pandemic. And the misery of being redeployed into areas like I got redeployed to the NICU, and it's not that I don't like working in the NICU, but I certainly didn't like working in the NICU during the global pandemic, where a lot of these people were not naked, and it was just, well, it was rough. So you finally get home and you're like, I don't care what, my internal parental voice says, I'm gonna stay up and watch 3 extra episodes. Right? Revenge bedtime procrastination. It's that you finally have some control over life. Right? But I think prior to that, if you are currently a night nurse and you maintain good sleep hygiene, and you do go to bed at the same time every time. Now, the research suggests that if you are a night nurse, you are best off maintaining a nocturnal lifestyle, right? That doesn't work, kids, right? It doesn't work, you have other responsibilities, it doesn't work, you're a single dad. It doesn't work. Because if you have friends or even my mom, like nobody understood It took hospitalizations for my best friend to finally realize. She's like, you're the lucky friend, you ever turn my phone calls and calling for 3 days. She finally, when she was hospitalized, and I came in at 7:30 at night, and I gave her, DVDs to watch on her laptop. And I came back to say goodbye in the morning, and finally was like, oh, you work all night. Yeah, that's why I would answer my phone at 3 o'clock. So maintaining a good sleep cycle. The anatomy of sleep, right? Here's that tiny little, really super duper important thing called hypothalamus. It has all these different features that you can see here, as far as its functions. It's this amazing powerhouse. And this ties into the storming presentation. Neurostorming. I used to think of the hypothalamus being like the thermostat on the wall. And there's all kinds of chaos happening in the room, right? And it's disrupting the function of that thermostat. Or somebody's just straight up started smashing the thermostat with a hammer. Right? That's the way I think about the disruption of hypothalamus. With these important roles, hunger and sleep and circadian rhythms, and all the command that it has throughout your body. So another tiny little gland, which you guys guessed correctly, back at the back here, this little tiny red spot, pineal gland. I have never been a chemistry buff, but I think that I like looking at pictures of molecules because I like those shirts that have, caffeine on it. This is the process of synthesis of melatonin. Right, so you have serotonin, you have this precursor, and then you end up with melatonin. Now, serotonin, tryptophan, melatonin, and oddly enough, the psychoactive compound in hallucinogenic mushrooms, psilocybin, all have very parallel, similar chemical structures, which are only people rely on melatonin for sleep. Anybody take? You're like my go-to answer. All you're like, she's not a plant. She's not a shill. She's like, oh, I would take melatonin. Nobody else has, have you taken melatonin for sleep? Yeah. How many people get weird dreams with melatonin? Yeah. Yeah, like those weird, like, whoa, what was that about? And you think maybe you need to go see an old school Freudian psychoanalyst to make sense of that dream because it was like so weird. And then if you don't take melatonin, you don't have those weird dreams. It's all starting to, pieces are coming together for me, right? So the pineal gland, this was the last gland to be discovered. I live in a state where you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a massage therapist who's also a yoga instructor who does some sort of complementary alternative healthcare. That being said, I will say that when my back, I have a chronic back problem at L5S1, like we all do after working as nurses and working retail and restaurant for years, carrying trays and stuff. The first person I go see is my acupuncturist, right? Because he's a cupping, we would leave him, and that is more effective for me personally than FlexGel. Right? I mean, FlexGel works, but it doesn't fix the way that a couple trips to my acupuncturist can kind of also on the tissue, right? But people were in the desert, in the high mystical desert where I live, like to talk about pineal glands in the third eye. Right? But there's a little something to it, right? It's kind of like when behavioral changes used to be attributed to demonic possession. The very fact that we call seizures a seizure, it used to be the transitive verb, this person has been seized, right? Now we use it as a verb as he's seizing, he's being seized by a demon, right? But if you think about somebody, here we go, you think about somebody with NMDAR receptor encephalopathy, if anybody's ever seen that. People have an autoimmune disorder where the brain attacks itself and they start acting like Linda Blair from the Exorcist, right? Complete with rising out of bed, strained, screaming, and and then catatonic. And then you post-mortem, they would do surgery and find a teratoma and be like, well, it's clear there's the demon, right? Because teratomas look like little people that look eyes or whatever. So I think there's like an accidental crossover. Same thing with this, where people understand that pineal gland responds to light, therefore they want to call it an eyeball. It does calcify. If you put me in an MRI today, mine would probably sparkle with bullet fragments because I don't think it produces anything anymore. But it releases melatonin into the blood, CSF. Here's a very crude drawing of the path that it travels. Light travels through the pupil to the back of the retina, in the back of the eye, through the inferior accessory optic tract, to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, down to the top of the spinal cord, and then back up to the pinnacle. And then it's time to secrete melatonin as things get dark, right? So this is that photo of the activity of melatonin. So it doesn't just work for sleep. It also works as an antioxidant. It's immune boosting, it's neuroprotective. One of the things I left off this list was how many people were here last year for this conference? Do you remember Diane McLaughlin getting up talking about cerebral, actually maybe it was 2 years, maybe it was 2 years ago. Who was here 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago when we were at Diane gave a presentation on these medications used for cerebral edema. And I was like, what do you mean high dose melatonin? That sounds like bananas to me at the time, right? But now finally it's taken me 2 years to understand like that's why. And when I was giving this talk at ANN in New Orleans, I was fortunate enough to have Ebony Green, who was since stepped out. She texted Diane, and I love this network because we all get to know each other. I was like, what's the starting dose? And everybody's like, Diane said that Diane's in Arizona at the moment, right? And everybody's like, she says 5 milligrams, right? Which is not that much. That was a higher dose than I think it's interesting. Milk. Right? Think about a little baby. Babies don't start making melatonin until 2 to 3 months. There is a hypothesis that that's because babies have to keep waking up to eat, right? I'm about to hit that second stage of nonstop eating when my son is 11, and then he's going to start consuming everything, right, constantly. But it peaks at puberty. Melatonin production peaks at puberty, and then kind of levels out that late teen and early adulthood, and then stays level at this magic age of 40. Okay, you got me all scared with the 40-year-old thing. Like, that's it. I'm 15 years into decline. That's it. But if at 90 you have less than 10% of your young adult focus, how many people are taking care of geriatric patients that don't sleep? I feel like I don't feel geriatric. I feel like I don't need as much sleep as I used to because my body's like, oh, you're gonna wake up. I know it's 2:30 in the morning. And you can't do anything, you can't go shopping, you can't leave the house. You're just gonna be awake and then you start doing stuff. I think that too. I'll check up on all the other noise and chatter that's being spread across the interwebs. It is possible to have too much of good for it. I leave this here for the interest of time for you to check out. As far as, but the thing is that the FDA doesn't regulate melatonin supplements.
Yeah.
So shift work, we're happy, right? Shift work, World Health Organization categorized shift work. I don't remember, this was relatively recently, less than 5 years ago, I think, certainly less than 10 years ago, as a carcinogen. Listen, I quit smoking. Yeah, I quit smoking. It's been 5 years. I'm hoping that I'm in the free and clear. So things that we know about shift work, our eating patterns are jacked up, right? Our exercise, we don't necessarily get. It's hard to exercise before you go to bed, you stay up late. It creates social isolation, right? Unless you make really good, solid team connections. But my best friend thought I was a lousy friend until she had to be hospitalized, and then, and that was like a couple of years. My mom never figured it out, and that was before the dementia. Right? Your non-medical friends already don't understand what you do. They think the grossest thing you deal with is maybe getting some urine on your shoe, and they don't understand what like an upper GI bleed or CF or like trach secretions or fistulas. They don't understand there's this whole let alone understand your sleep wake cycles. And it's hard for any of us to do shift work to get good quality sleep because we also slam caffeine. We slam Monster Energy drinks. I don't know about you, but I can't have caffeine past like noon on my sleep. And I can't have even a single alcoholic beverage past like 6 p.m. if I expect to fall asleep with a decent heart rate by 10. I don't know how do we all do it in our 20s or 30s? But there was this huge study published in 2015, followed 74,862 nurses over 22 years. This was night shift they defined as greater than 3 night shifts per month, which I don't know what shifts used to be like, but that's, I know sometimes people will alternate between day and night shift. My friend that convinced me to become a nurse, she used to work peds oncology and they would do so many days, nights. Turns out that's not a great idea either. So they followed this, which it amazes me anyway, because we didn't have computers. Some people didn't even have answering machines, so I don't know the labor involved in documenting this stuff across the group, right? Baseline health, lifestyle, night shift or not, notified by next of kin when the person died and then looked at their cause of death. 14,181 deaths were documented. 5 or more years of night shift increase your risk for all causes. I know there's people, because there's people. They're like, wait, I've been working Latin for 5 years of night shift. 15 or more years of night shift, plus increased the risk of dying from lung cancer. Because they found, I think that's your, nurses that worked for over 15 years of night shift tended to be older, mean age of 66, have a higher BMI, were less likely to utilize postmenopausal hormone treatment, be smokers. I'm waiting to hear the girl now, and be married to men with low education levels. Meaning, the angry nurse is the breadwinner for the deadbeat husband. Maybe not deadbeat husband. Maybe that's the actual. But she's the breadwinner. She's the breadwinner. He is a lower, education status, so probably has a lower pay. So in addition to the risk of increased risk of cerebrovascular disease and cancer, hypertension, diabetes, right? All my HMPs start with hypertension, diabetes, and every night. It's a given. I don't know how to take care of something that's 35 with a BMI, with a weight 75 kilograms. I don't know. I don't know. It's not like what's you just have a program. Great one little back. Oh, and BMI. No, I'm not looking at you for your BMI. I'm looking at you because I'm just gonna say that I didn't get pizza. Appropriate healing. To give to all these risk for this. So the challenge is, right, what do we do about this? What do we do, how do we fix this? It's really hard, right? This is still a system of learning. It's like discovering a new planet, discovering a new solar system. What we used to think was true is no longer true, and it's great. Like the longer you stay in practice, like Kinsey was talking about hanging the bag, right? Or we think about when we used to give steroids for spinal cord injury to reduce the litigation. Or in my time, the fact that, more recently that we don't immobilize patients. We used to immobilize patients for a long time, wait for the inflammation to go down, then get them in the OR. So like protracted traction and other stuff that we don't do. My hospital, I forgot to. In fact, my hospital was about to be the only comprehensive stroke center in a state of 2.1 million people. We are the high-risk OB hospital for the state of New Mexico. We're the only level of trauma center in the state of New Mexico. We're also a cancer center. And we have 15 different pediatric subspecialties. And we're the only high-risk OB hospital. So everything that we see is the worst of the worst, the highest of the highest. When the hantavirus started sweeping around northwest New Mexico, we really lost that. We still are lost since. So a lot of stuff all flows together. So yeah, what do we do about fixing it? Normal self-care, right? Eating a well-balanced diet, it's really hard. right? Especially if this is what's being presented to you. Or if you just think about how families thank us. They bring us sweets, that's how we say thank you in the United States, like. We have a very large Vietnamese population now, after the Vietnam War. They relocated thousands of refugees to Albuquerque. And those refugees have new family members coming, right? So we actually, everything that we do at Unum Hospital is in English, Navajo, because we treat Navajo reservation as the largest reservation in the United States. 100,000 Navajo speakers. Spanish, obviously, but also Vietnamese. I had one family the whole time, all 9 years that I worked, we took care of a Vietnamese patient that had a very horrible brainstem bleed and made a miraculous recovery, given that it was, a basal recovery. And his family brought spring rolls and fresh, I don't know if you guys have good Vietnamese food here, but like good, fresh, every cucumbers and carrots and spring rolls and vegetarian stuff. It was really healthy, and the family was astute enough to realize that they should bringing in. So they would bring in twice as much and label it day and night, and that's why that really sticks in my mind, right? Because they made sure to be like hands off. This is for the night shift that's coming in, right? Because other days we eat all our food. We have some warm stuff, and this is basic with some queso and some chips. Out. Okay. So eating a balanced diet, right? CDC recommends not eating between midnight and 6 a.m. At least not eating a big heavy meal. Don't exercise too close to sleep. Those of you with things like orograms or other monitors know that exercising too close to sleep elevates your heart rate, makes it harder to rest. I used to think, and I'm tired of sleep. I'll drink alcohol at least 2 hours before bed. For me, it's like 4 to 5 to 6 hours before bed. Refraining from caffeine at least 6 hours prior to bed. And practicing good sleep hygiene, try to go to bed at the same time. One of the most successful nurse practitioner powerhouse couples at UNM, they would work 6 on, 8 off. But they always maintain this. I was like, that is exhausting. And they're like, well, no, we maintain same schedule. And I was like, well, we got 8 days. So that gives you a good time to decompress, and they don't flip flop, which is really hard on the body. Don't do the screen thing. Don't do the scrolling. Right? Go to bed at a regular time. Get sunlight during the day. Your brain does respond to sunlight. There's mystical hippie folk where I live that think that the third eye absorbs light like through your skull. That's not really it's your retina. There's another way that light gets into your skull, and it gets in through the 2 holes at the front, right? It's more straightforward. Eating too much before bed. Those of you again with monitoring devices like this, if I eat, it even asks you in the morning, I ate lower than I ate last night. Did you really increase the energy? Try to have a relaxing bedtime. Did anybody do any of these things? Anybody first time nods? Pair of comfortable sleep, blackout curtains. But regular exercise as well. It's not exercise running around on your feet for 12 hours for 3 shifts in a row, or 4 shifts or whatever. It's not the same thing as exercise. It's straining and it's exhausting. Rotating shifts, some people suggested days, evening shift, night shift, morning shift, day shift. Cycling that way, not counterclockwise, day shift, morning shift, night shift. It actually goes better to go in the clockwise fashion of lateness. Maintain a constant, as I said, sleep-wake pattern. Stay awake every night and sleep every day, but that's good, because what if you got kids? What if you got a spouse that needs to talk to you? So. Now this might make marriage work too, that's what I said. Especially if it's got an angry person who's the breadwinner, doesn't have time for resentment, well good, right? So watching house on work at night. 90-minute naps before reporting for your shift. I saw some sort of mixed data on this. Naps, I don't know how many people benefit from naps? Anybody not, like anybody get disrupted by a nap? Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Because we're all different. There's all these different sleep aids, so some people take melatonin, how many people take magnesium? Yeah, magnesium works pretty well for me, except as you know, we sometimes get bad for other reasons. Patients, I'm not talking about kids, I'm talking about hanging nag, I'm talking about beetle. You take your nag, you go to sleep, you know, get some good sleep, and then the eye track is like, I have something to say about that. Warm milk, chamomile tea, hard cherry juice has, you know, almost feels like, what doesn't it do, right? I see it in my supplements for working out. I don't know the research on this personally, I'm just giving you information that you do with it what you will. Valerian root, right, is a popular one. Glycine, CBD, that goes either way. I know some people that do well with CBD, and then other people that are like, that kept me up all night to freak it out. Not as bad as melatonin dreams, but still. Tryptophan, how many people take tryptophan? Anybody? I take tryptophan and magnesium. I found magnesium that doesn't mess up my guts when I'm trying to go to sleep. But the thing is a lot of these aren't regulated. And some of the FDA found that some of these things that are up to 400% more than they say they are, or they're way less than they say that they are. I don't know, I can't personally recommend not using covenant vendors. I literally don't know. I have found some things that work for me, but it's just like, check it out, check it out. It's the name of the company that makes this stuff. Because there's all kinds of hoodwink you can hoodwink. My PhD work in linguistics is actually related to medical discrimination. And it's amazing because we know how much as healthcare workers right now, and how much medical discrimination there's out there. Right? Reasonably sure I've not seen any data, you know, using vitamin A treats measles. Right? Just gonna say, L-theanine, high levels present in green tea. I would recommend drinking green tea, try to ease into green tea from coffee, right? Because L-theanine is in green tea, and I know some people do really well. Anybody take L-theanine? Only experience statement, that's another one. These are the counter diphenhydramine, right? How many people have seen the literature that diphenhydramine is now associated with Alzheimer's?
Oh, no.
Or with dementia? No, Alzheimer's is with dementia. Taking Benadryl every day increases your risk of development. They did a big longitudinal study, and that's true for hydroxyzine. Everybody, so who takes Benadryl for sleep? Everybody's like, evidence. Anybody have ambient dissociative episodes where you get up in the morning and there's like some new throw pillows or whatever homeowner in your house that you don't know why? Right, that's the thing that happened with Lumesta as well as balsamic. To balsamic briefly, and I was like, great, it works when you're resting. It's like it's a whole different thing. It doesn't sedate you, it like takes your foot off the gas. Instead of slamming your foot on the brakes, it takes your foot, right? But then all the literature started to come out. No, people are tripping, people are eating, waking up in the morning and they've eaten all the confidence in the fridge door. And then another one that had a stomach ache, you know, I'm not kidding, these are actual events. This is hard, right? Because healthcare is a 24-hour profession. The only thing I can see as a consistent recommendation is maybe ultimately limiting your night shift years. This isn't just for nursing, this is for anybody. You know, it's not, we're not totally doomed. It's not, well, that's it. I just feel right. I like to think when I visualize the lymphatic system, and I think of all of that stuff flowing in for the perivascular space around arteries, coming across and getting caught and moved and flushed through those little aquaporin 4 openings that the astrocytes create around the perivascular space around the venous system, especially when you consider that's 8% of our intracranial blood volume, 2% of our intracranial blood volume is that material space. The fact that that stuff does get flushed out. Another popular thing, and if you guys before I give people what's called creating a safe live, like claiming that they can actually manipulate the flow of CSF. I'll leave that up to juries. I have a strong opinion about that being possible, given that we're talking about how much CSF is in situ at one time. We went through the numbers about how much we make. Like about what's our number for CSF right now? All of us, how much CSF is circulating in your system? 150-ish, something like that, 170-ish, depending ballpark. I don't know that we're doing that stuff really works, but it's really important. This little tiny bit of fluid and these cells are so important that we're now going to understand as far as overall brain health. And it's not just understanding what's going on with your patient, because we tend to focus a lot on what's going on with the patient. And then sometimes wellness initiatives for nurses are like, okay, you got self-care, you're not self-caring hard enough. Right, but it's not actually tied into science. Sometimes it's tied into pizza and meditative thoughts and, coupons for massages, for chair massages on the unit or to anyway, I'll think about everybody sharing their scrubs on the day. You're not really touch drugs. You want to share a scrub, but I mean, I get it, it's a nice thing, massages. But there's things that we can do that I think are, as I mentioned, taking good care of yourself for the long run. Because as neuroscience workers, that you do not want to be without your pants on, with a gown, in a room, being constantly reoriented by somebody, 25 years from now, 30 years from now, right? That's my worst fear, is waking up in the 6-bed ward that I used to work at. I think I'm back together. I may still have them. Like 2 minutes. Does anybody have questions? Thoughts?
Yeah, hold on.
Hey, so I've been in departments. I'll hold it way back here. I've been a night shift nurse for most of the last 15 years. Not married to an uneducated man. I was curious because I've read a lot of research and literature for the last, and it's all like nobody can agree on what would help night shift sleep better, because I had episodes of I do sleep better sometimes where I just struggle to sleep better. I know what works for me, but do you have anything that you've read since you're doing this kind of like study that you would say helps night shift the most, far like supplemental type of thing?
Not that I've seen that's like reliable. It's like it's an N of 100 and some people, so it's hard to say. If I did a sleep study with all of you, I don't know how generalizable it would be to the whole population, because there's so much other stuff that goes on. A diet, sugar that we eat a lot of sugar, because people reward us with cupcakes and cookies and stuff like that. And then we rely on caffeine, and then how if you stop drinking your caffeine is also how active are you? Do you maintain a nocturnal schedule 7 days a week?
I got 3 days.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of the reason why I took my day shift job as a neuroscience nurse educator, was my kid was getting to be 3 years old. And I'm like, dude, I don't know, this is awesome. 3-year-olds are amazing, and 11-year-olds are amazing. And all points in between. Right, so I haven't really seen, and different people respond differently, just like we know some populations don't respond well to ACE inhibitors. So I have to assume that it's the same for L-theanine, melatonin supplements, or, what I mean, depending on what your genetic makeup is. I don't think there's been a good solid study to show this thing works. We know that we can knock you out. I know I can knock you, I can knock you out with sedatives, but then you don't get good sleep. So, the main thing is maintaining cycle, good sleep hygiene, but then if you gotta feel fine.
I will say with these years, exercise that you like does the best. You work out before your night shift. I've gotten mostly that.
Yeah.
I found after like it took me like 10 years to get up.
But
Work out before night shift, not a big deal.
better late than never. That's a really good question. Anybody else? Thank you. Something to think about.
Thank you, Sam, that was awesome. So now you're in for another treat, we're gonna have an interactive session, and this one's gonna be led by our stroke coordinators and extraordinaires. So we have, Susanna Tibbs is our, stroke program educator. We've got Cheryl Lewis, stroke program coordinator, Samantha Orr, stroke program coordinator, and Kristen Davies. Who's also a stroke program coordinator and vascular neurology nurse practitioner, but they put together an interactive escape room activity with you guys. So I've never done an escape room because I am from the late 1900s. So this will be my first experience for this as well. So you guys stay tuned. Susanna's gonna give us all instructions and we'll go from there.
Well, hello everyone. I'm glad that everybody stay awake. Like I said earlier, it is very hard to follow Sarah because it is such an amazing speaker. And so we will do the best we can to sort of follow with him. Now, who over here has not been at escape room? All right. Most people have Sarah, remember?
My son does them. I can't even tell you the arguments we have about this whole thing.
So in order for us to start or play this game, I need to be a total of 10 tables. So currently we have a lot more than 10 tables. So if you don't mind just kind of like joining, like some of the tables that have only 3 people or 2 people, please join. Like some of the ones that have 3. Same over there on that corner, if you guys want to just kind of like join, I need a total of 10 tables. And if you don't want to play, you don't have to. If the whole table does not have anybody that has been to escape room before, and maybe you guys want a table that has some friends that can help you out. Over here, can like join into just one table if you guys want to. You want to make sure you have, there's just the 3 of you. So are we at 10 tables currently? I need a total of 10 tables. 1. Do you guys want to participate here in this round table? Why don't you go ahead and join the back table over there? Yeah, okay. Well, I need a total of 10 tables. Let's see, let's start over there with table number 1. Table number 2. Table number 3. Where Christy is sitting, Christy Smith will normally be table number 3 then. Then we have table number 4 here where my mirror OR is. 5. If you guys don't mind joining any of the tables, Dr. Shapiro and the other physician, unless you guys just don't want to participate, that's fine. So we were in number 5, right? For my silent team over here. We have number 10, 6, 7, my big one over there. 8, anybody wants to be 8? You guys gonna be 8? And we do want to make sure that, and I apologize, you guys want nurses on your team. I don't know if you guys are all nurses or, you know, you will need a nurse to be able to call the poster. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go start with some of the rules, okay? So you guys are there with me, my reading skills are terrible. But again, anybody wants to volunteer to read, welcome to. But we're gonna be doing this together. Now, we got introduced to Cheryl and Kristen and Sam. I tell you, they did the dry run for this toe stroke. They did not skate. And you guys wanna know what they said? You guys wanna know what they say? They say they will not skate either. But we'll see if that is true. Oh, do I visualize myself?
Yeah, clicker.
Oh, okay. There we go. So we're gonna start with the escape room challenge. So you will have 15 minutes to escape. I tell you, this in my mind is perfect. Now, then people start doing it and they do it wrong. I'm like, wait a minute. In my head, this was working great. Now, of course, it doesn't always work when it goes to you guys' head. My hope is you guys will actually escape within 10 minutes to 15 minutes. I think it should be easy enough to do. My son and my husband also tested it and they did not escape at 10 minutes, but they did escape at 15. So assuming that there's so many per table, I'm hoping that you guys will be able to escape. So I want you to designate a spokesperson. The spokesperson on your table will be responsible to speak to the game masters in case you guys get stuck with a clue. If there's something that you guys don't know how to do, you're like, I'm really not sure how to escape.
I'm gonna escape.
So you will have the spokesperson will be the one that once you guys have finally had the clues together and you have your paper together, you will come into the front and you will bust in, right? And say, I have solved all my puzzles, kind of like I think. And then that person will also be the one participating in the actual closing, okay? There are 10 tables with one common goal, meaning there is only one patient, but the scenario has been split between 3 different parts of the code blue. So my first nurse will be my triage nurse, we have my CT imaging, and we have my TNK nurse, right? So there will be at least 3 tables that have a TNK scenario. There will be 3 or 4 tables that have a CT scenario. And there will be 3 or 4 tables. Therefore, the very first table that finished will be the one that gets their table to participate. Is everyone with me so far, or have I lost anyone yet? Okay, good. Now, again, I want you to, once you actually have solved your part of the scenario, I want you to come here to the front and bust in. It's gonna sound like this. And then your table will get to participate. Now, let's go over the rules of the escape room. You're gonna handle with care. No forcing, ripping, or breaking anything. Every clue is meant to be solved, not destroyed. This clue came about because of somebody I know. That
He's getting a coach for me to gently open a little vial.
if you lose or you break your clue, you are out of luck. That means your table did not escape because we can't replace them. So we want you to think like a detective. Examine every clue and get creative. Sometimes it isn't what it seems. No fingers, no masks. I know that this is hard. But please do not put your mouth or your fingers anywhere. Whenever you find a clue, there will be a very obvious hole. I do not want you to put your finger in that particular hole. You are supposed to use your clues or your materials to be able to get the stuff out of the hole. It's not what you guys are thinking. It's not medical people. Again, just please don't put your mouth on any of that. Instructions matter, so follow any provided instructions carefully. If the clues are needed, if clues needed guidance, anyway, whatever that says, I can't read it anymore. If you are stuck, ask for help. You will raise your hand, and one of our wonderful game masters, which will be either Cheryl, Sam, or Kristen, which I don't know where she went, we already lost one. Oh, there we go. I got this one. They can help you. They're not supposed to give you the answer, but they can guide you into how to solve that particular puzzle or clue. The equal playing field, meaning there are 10 bags in here. All of these 10 bags are assembled exactly the same. Now, because it's Easter and I got most of the materials for the dollar store. Some of you guys will have a ducky, some of you guys will have a chicken, and some will have a little bunny. But that is truly the only difference that there is in this. The clues are assembled exactly the same. That way, every table has the exact same ability to skate. And then, keep your secrets. We don't want you to be sharing or talking too loud on your table where you say, oh, this is the clue, and then the table right next to it kind of hears you and they get the clue without actually solving the clue. So make sure that you keep your table secure. We will have some music playing on the background to try to help minimize some of that copying, okay? Are you guys ready? Awesome, awesome. You guys Hey, so I still have 2 tables. Do you guys have a piece of paper like this? Okay, there we go. Facing your group. Yeah, okay. And then we need 1 more table. I guess we should be fine then with 9. Yeah, got it at 9. All right.
It's okay.
So your objective is to find a 3-digit code to unlock your patient scenario and initiate a code stroke. The time will start ticking after we solve this riddle. So solve this riddle for the next slide as a table and bring the 5-digit code to one of the game masters. They will provide you with the next clues. Okay? The music can start now. And here is your riddle. So this is what you guys need to solve and bring that code over to us. And then we will give you the rest of the clues. You start the music and the timer as well, please. The timer is starts now. Your 15 minutes have just started. You can probably make that a little louder too. Stop the timer because we love the clues from Okay, there we go. There's the team. Yes. Oh, don't let you not keep thinking, guys. Go, 50. Run. We've got one more room right here, we go. We got one more table to go your families. Come on, South, bring it, bring it.
When you get the phone installed, send your representative up here and plug in. Get down. Pass their bags, everybody's working on their puzzles. Our in-house neurologist is here to help with the coach stroke. Dr. Nina, we're taking questions.
How many minutes we have left? 10, good. Guys, have 10 minutes. Don't forget that when you guys escape, you need to come over here to slot in, so that way your table can be the one participating in the whole program. No, 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 no. No, no. You can pull it from there, when you with your hands. They got it open, they got it open. Anybody have it open yet? How many minutes we have left? 7 minutes. Guys, we got 7 minutes left.
So whoever gets it, run down here and hit the buzzer.
Twenty 4 minutes we have, back. 6 minutes left, 6 minutes. If you are stuck with a clue, you can call one of the game masters. Cheryl, come back and don't hold that, don't give it the answer. I know. Remember that you guys have to use everything that was inside the bag. That will help you solve some of the clues. How many minutes we have left? Looks like we have a winner table. Remember, they have the thinking imaging. That's okay. You keep going and finish your cycle. We still need reacts and we still need DHA. No? BNK and triage table. We are still waiting for you. That's it, if you have the answer. Table, and they are the TNK.
Guys,
No, you guys are triage, right? Okay, so we have a triage and we have a CT scan. We need our TNK table. Come on, TNK. How many minutes we have left? We got 3 minutes.
come on,
3 minutes left, TNK. Hey guys, stay. We were kind of. We got our TNK. There's still some people that can continue to skate. We have about what, 2 minutes left? 2 minutes left. To see if you can still skate. We already got it, but I was just giving them some time to wait and maintain. How many minutes on that? 1 minute, table, 1 minute. We got 1 minute. That's what I'm getting. We'll maybe have it. Yeah. Okay, okay. Okay. Time it over. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Okay, so they are skating with like 15 seconds to go. Yeah, you know, and I was to tell you skate.
Hey, great job, great job.
Now, okay, we're gonna go back to actually calling our control. We do have phones, like a photo booth. So if you guys want to take some pictures and show how amazing you guys did at skating, please come get it and I'll take your pictures. That will be pretty awesome. So I will get you guys good shows tonight. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started with, we're gonna go ahead and get started with a triage table. So we're gonna be helping them out a little bit in case they need help, okay? So
Okay, guys, we're settling in to do our coach rotation now.
So for that triage patient, you guys can see it on the monitor there. And so Steve over here is gonna help us read these scenario for you guys. Now, what's gonna happen is he just received this patient scenario. We're going to try to review what kind of information he actually needs before calling the physician. So go ahead and get started, Steve.
Sorry. Fifty-one-year-old female with having a history of atrial septal defect, so proposed open repair with perioperative atrial fibrillation, non-anticoagulated, brought by EMS, no pre-notification to the ER with acute onset of left side gaze, right paresis, and neglect without invasion. Past circular pre-open ASD repair with perioperative atrial fibrillation. Social history, no reported tobacco use, PT of age or illicit use. Vital signs, heart rate 88, respiratory 15, blood pressure 200/90, SpO2 99%, NIH at 21, last known level was 1230. What else do you want to know about the patient? Our response was labs, blood glucose, meds.
Just that.
chemo, meds, history of surgery, any head trauma.
Because they got it correct, and some of the questions that they knew that they were missing was the blood sugar. As you all know, we need to get a blood sugar on our patient because we want to rule out, is my patient slurring the words because the blood sugar is too low? Or is it because they're truly having a stroke, right? So one of the questions we wanted to make sure you guys got was getting that blood sugar. So you guys got it. So now, what are we gonna do with this information? Now, again, this is an ED patient, so this is what we use in this particular scenario. This is what you're supposed to do. When you are in the ER, you're supposed to take your patient to the stop sign. You always wanna check your ABCs, because if your patient's not breathing, you have a bigger problem that you need to address before you get to your post-stroke. We want to obtain that NIHSS, which was provided to you, 21. And then we want to ask additional questions. They did have those additional questions in there, like medications, they wanna know last known well, they wanna know other information that had just recently been provided to them, and then they will call it post-stroke, right? Now that we have all of the information. This is the patient's last known well was at 12:30, it's currently 2:00 or something? 2:30, so 2 hours ago. At 12:30. In this particular case, your symptoms are at the same time as the last known well, but as all of you already know, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the case. Your vital signs are 200/90, heart rate of 88. Again, what we're gonna hear now is Steven going to call the post-stroke and see which physician happened to answer the call.
Hello, how can I help you today? Okay.
Patient is coming through EMS with left-sided gaze, right hemiparesis, and left mild aphasia.
And what was the glucose again?
120.
All right, I'm coming right in.
All right. We have a NAH of 21, blood pressure 200/90.
You should say, did you see how fast I got here?
Heart rate remaining 99% O2, room air, and respiration.
Excellent, thank you. All right, let's go. You want to take a patient to CT, right?
Let's go now.
Let's go. Don't play around. Let's go, go.
All right, now we're going to go ahead and review. So the way that this is going to work is kind of like, we have this scenario, we're gonna put like a little pause button. And so we're gonna explain what happened with the CT scenario, and then we're gonna action again, then we'll go back into our stroke, okay? So our CT questions were,
kind of imaging in order during a code stroke, so a dry CT, CTA, and CTP.
okay, and why do we order this specific imaging?
Will allow hemorrhagic stroke to look for any ischemic strokes, occlusions, and the check the perfusion.
Perfect, and then what other information do you need while you use CT?
Typically, CT wants to know about any iodine allergies. They want to know what the creatinine is before injecting. Sometimes they decline to wait for that. And then that's pretty much it if they're diabetic.
Some of the other things that we need to do while our patient is in CT, we need to verify that we have IV access. And the preferred gauge that we have is 28. That's what we prefer to have. You also have to remember that even during CT, we want to maintain that neuro assessment and your frequent vital signs, okay? Thank you, CT. I appreciate it very much. CT. We got a few more things for you. Just one second.
You're in, I'm imaging. Bring your images. Not images. All right, so. I'll hit it again. That's gonna be messy.
Dr. Nima, the patient just finished the dry head CT.
Oh, great, thank you. Give me a minute so I can look at it.
Now, if you click next, the image will actually move. It's a video, so you see. I thought I put it.
Can you go back down to stop it and then go back down or go reverse the video? Go back. Oh, yeah, play. I'm gonna tell you to pause it, please.
I don't think I can.
You know, not acceptable.
So Dr. Rina's gonna explain what he will normally be looking at in this imaging.
So there are a few things we can look at the CT, right? So you guys already mentioned this. What's the main thing that we're looking for when we get a CT? Everybody see a bleed? Perfect. No bleed. That's very helpful because we don't know what kind of stroke we're getting. So this is not a hemorrhagic stroke. There's two other findings here that's interesting. And I cannot believe you cannot pause the video. If you look at the right, can you play it one more time? Please. So the eyes are actually looking to the left. So based on this, that's not what we do CT, but you can see the patient has left gaze preference. That helps, you know, based on the exam also makes, oh, perfect. So what do you guys see right in the middle? We agree we don't see blood, nothing white or hyper dense, but there's something that's a little more dense on the left than the right. And it's not in the brain. Anybody see it? Sorry, man. Right there, you see that right there, that is the hyperdense city right there. So that's your blood clot sitting right there. Thank you very much for the CT.
Let's see, is CT does have one more question.
Are we giving this patient TNK?
Yes. Let me talk to the family first though. Can the patient talk?
Yes.
I'll talk to the patient and family to make sure
Will
that.
the patient able to talk? Like, is it mild, right, on your?
Yeah, I think the family is with them as well, so that's all.
Thank you, CT.
Thank you,
You're
CT.
done. Appreciate it.
Great work.
We're gonna have our TNK. Perfect, thank you. So what information is needed to administer TNK?
So we want to do the last. And then.
Perfect. And we don't. TNK result. These things.
Right, was your doctor.
And then we also want to kind of review the exclusion criteria a little bit before we do that. Which we will do that again in a few minutes and in the next slide. What do you need your blood pressure to be under to administer TNK? Perfect. And if the blood pressure is higher than the parameters, what do you do? Okay. What are the normal PRN medications that the physicians most likely will order? Are there any contraindications on these patients' medical history to give the patient TNK?
I don't think there is something that we did.
So no, there is not with the information we have so far. And how much will you give this patient if you were doing the math on how much you were doing?
We got 19 milligrams.
Okay, perfect. So you guys, on neither one of the scenarios, we had a weight yet. In their scenario, they received the patient's weight, which was 165 tons. Okay, so yes, we will give 19, 2.8 amounts, correct. This is the information that you technically needed to know when it comes to administering the TNK. One of the main things is that the physician will be asking for is,
What's the blood pressure again?
Current vitals and BP is 202/95, heart rate 75, and O2 is 96.
Good. What do you have available that we can give, because that blood pressure is quite high?
And 10 milligrams of labetalol.
Let's do it.
New BP is 180/85, heart rate 78, SpO2 is 95, and respirations are 18.
All right, already talked to family, CT looks good, I don't see any contraindication, let's go ahead and give the 10K. Great work.
just a quick review, this is a very busy slide, but this is your exclusion criteria when it comes to your patient, giving your patient TNK. Now, the list is quite long, the other additional criteria that might be in place here, but the physician will be the one that will sort of take that decision. Now, after we did the dry SCT, we administered the TNK, now it is time to do what? Do the CTA and the CT perfusion to see if we're gonna be taking this patient.
Hold on. We have two treatment available, right? Ischemic stroke, acute ischemic stroke, two treatment. You gave 10K, right? There's one other thing that's very effective.
So this is just a quick review for everybody of the step by step that you do when you administer TNK. This is at least per Baptist. This is the steps that we follow at Baptist, and just always remember that your max dose is 25 milligrams. This is your CT head and your CT perfusion. I assume in this one either the image is already moving and I'm not looking, or we need to click next and the image will start moving.
Can you stop right there if you can? All right, anybody see anything problem on the CTA on the left of your screen? Pick up, what do you see? Which one? Excellent. So what she's saying appropriately, there's a gap right there, right? So this is the right side, the radiology things are flipped. That's the right side, that's the left side. So you see that line goes nicely, that's the right hemisphere. The left hemisphere should be right there, that's not right. And perfusion, the green shows you the area that's at risk. So right here, there's a gap right there suggesting a blood clot sitting right there. And then we try to ignore the pink, but just look at the green, that tells you the area of perfusion. Where you wanna go now? Notice design was so that we were not waiting for this to give TNK. I think that was very important. I just want to make sure that everybody noticed. And everything should be done in a, well, let me ask you a question. Should we do things in sequential or parallel fashion? You guys have a bottleneck effect. So to help the time, because time is so important, everything should be done in a parallel fashion. So are we going to do a thrombectomy now? Do you want us to wait to post the case and let the OR know now, or should we do that earlier in case of time is running and ready to go? So meaning people from OR is here and I know the pressure that they get, but we should give them a heads up. So they should already have a heads up. That way things are like in parallel fashion, right? You guys do a great job with answering. So now it's a matter of, the clock is really ticking. And there's no time to waste. So if the OR not ready, if anesthesia is not ready, we should do the best that we can get the patient safely out there and to the thrombectomy program. Last time you told me don't touch.
I'm giving you permission.
You telling me don't touch it?
I literally
Can I
said,
put my finger on it?
you know how difficult it was for me to do this scenario? Because I had to say, you need to stick to my script. You cannot, and so for me to tell him that he needed to follow my script, that was already difficult enough.
You better listen to what she says.
this video, so I think you will start with a clip.
So we're looking at the side, right? So there's a catheter at the bottom of the screen, that's the darker thing with the tip. And basically there's a injection, that's the dye, goes through, and dye stops right above the eye. Where's the eye? So you see the eye is right here. So as you see, the dye goes, but it does not go past this area. That's where the blockage is. After, so we have a support. I'm sorry, let's go back. Growing access. Then from that, we put a bigger catheter in the vessel of interest. That gives us the support, and through that, you can put other stuff in there, smaller wire and microcapsule. Then you go through the clot and you basically remove the clot the best as you can with the devices we have. And on the post, you can see the difference, right? Now the dye fills up that whole beautiful MCA and ACA. This was an ICA terminus, so end of the ICA occlusion, because you don't see anterior circulation either. And now you can see all that flow going through the beautiful circle of Willis. The thrombectomy was done, and you can see the difference. And next. Ah, nice spot. Who said that? So if anybody works with me knows that I like the picture of the clots. It's every clot looks different. It doesn't matter how many times you do this, and it's a beautiful picture because it suggests how sometimes it's such a small thing, or in this case, bigger thing, causes such problems. Life is changed after this event for this patient if that doesn't happen right away. Remember, the stroke is number one kind of disability. But in an older patient, death or disability are going to be imminent unless this is done. So, nice thought. I'm impressed. Who are those people? Are those yours?
They're from Google. I could too. I always go with dog and cat just in case there are cat people here, which is weird, but I am a dog person, but I am equal opportunity as well, so I didn't want to cat there for you. And then of course we did it with skate. Thank you very much to all of those that participated. You guys were amazing. You guys, most of the tables were able to skate within 15 minutes, so that was amazing. Thank you so much for your participation. Most of you guys.
Hold on, how about a round of applause for receiving a great job. Thank you very much. Thank you to take it down. It was waiting for ropes to come in, right? Skate ropes tied up and all that.
I do have again some photo booths, so please make sure you take pictures with those. That way we can share and how much fun we did have skating. Any feedback that you guys have for me, and since most of you guys already completed your evals, I know that you guys love this activity. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing
So,
that.
hold on, she won't let anybody else talk, right? Well, but I want to also thank you, just have an opportunity to thank, the stroke coordinator, because as you see, Cheryl, Kristen, and everybody else, and has done such a great job, and along with Tim, Chris, and Wendy, and one thing that we have not mentioned in this post-stroke process, there's some important piece a person, team member was missing. Can anybody tell me who was missing from that post-stroke? It helps a lot, and I want to give credit to it. Okay, I was on, you're right. I like pharmacists, but we don't have pharmacists all the time. But at downtown, which is the busiest place, we do rely on your ICU APPs, and they do a great job. And to be honest, I was running basically, but to be honest, if it wasn't for them, things would not be as smooth. Along with their short team from the ER, they do a great job, and the OR who's accommodating all our hectic things, always right to you. So I just want to say thank you, and next time we have escape room, make sure we have rope and a ladder, a blanket. But then with the ladder, you can take it to the next level.
If you don't mind, guys, putting the packages back, you just put everything inside the bag and I will collect them a little later. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll get to use it if you guys didn't rip it all apart. Thank you for following the instructions, and thank you to my husband that actually helped me so much with this project.
Vendors are, so you're right, whether you're somebody there is the chocolate with your popcorn and coffee and it's all these sweets, so. Find your way over there, I think we're gonna make it kind of quick so we can get back on schedule, so we'll be back in here for about 10 minutes. We'll get started just after.
Hi. Did you have some time? Oh, yeah. Right? Yeah, I'm the only one. Are you the only one? People they were gonna come though. I mean, like, yeah. I say tonight. Yeah. If you ever want to, you know. We work for hours, whatever we do. That was so much fun. Congratulations. You did really good. It is.